Hello there and welcome to a quick look at Spot Goes to Hollywood from 1995. All the gameplay you'll see in this video was captured on an Analogue Mega SG console, and we'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. Remember, if you enjoy this video or find it useful, please do consider subscribing to the channel for more content like this. So, as this is the first video in the series, let's briefly talk about the console that I'm using to play this game. If you happen to not be interested in this part, feel free to skip ahead using YouTube's chapter feature, but for those of you that are interested, these systems are essentially a modern-made console that plays original cartridges, and they were created by a company called Analogue. These consoles don't use emulation to do this, they literally play the original game carts using new FPGA technology, which is actually quite a complicated thing, so I won't go into it all here. All you really need to know is that this particular console, the Mega SG, plays all Mega Drive and Genesis games and is completely region-free, so you can play, Japanese games as well as literally anything else from anywhere in the world. There's also various adapters that you can get that allow you to play other consoles, and on top of that, it outputs in 1080p 60 FPS and connects to all modern TVs via HDMI. I honestly believe that it is without a doubt the absolute best way to play these old carts in this day and age. Now then, some of you guys out there, perhaps you've been with me for a while, you may have noticed the link in my video descriptions that goes to a store called Pyro Games. Well, the owner of that store happens to be a very good friend of mine, and he very kindly loaned me a whole bunch of Mega Drive and Genesis games to play and share with you all. So, if you're looking for retro games, please do take a look at his store. International shipping is available, and you can use my promo code to get 10% off. I don't get paid for this or anything like that, I'm just promoting a friend's business and, trying to be helpful, essentially. But yeah, if you're interested, check the link in the description, he's got a lot of stuff, I'm sure you'll find something that interests you. So now let's talk about the actual game itself, and don't worry, that intro section I just did will be heavily cut down in subsequent videos. I know it's kind of long, but I wanted to give you all the info considering this was a new series. And so the game we're looking at is called Spot Goes to Hollywood. It was released in 1995 when I was actually 7 years old, and it was developed by Eurocom, published by Acclaim in the US and Virgin Interactive in the UK and Europe. I myself played this on the Sega Mega Drive as I lived in the UK, but as many of you probably know, the Sega Mega Drive was called the Sega Genesis in the States. This game did get a port to the PlayStation 1 and the Sega Saturn. It varied by region, but these ports released at different times across 96 and 97. These versions of the game did look a bit better and featured full motion video clips, often known as FMV, and different levels. Spot Goes to Hollywood is actually a sequel to the 1993 Mega Drive and Genesis game, Cool Spot, which featured the same character, but the game was actually a 2D side-scrolling platformer instead of this sort of isometric view that you can see here. Something that I was actually quite surprised to learn is that not a lot of people know who Spot actually is. Well, for those that don't know, he's actually an old mascot for the 7-Up soft drink. What you're seeing here is an actual advert from the 80s, and in the original Cool Spot game, Spot is actually shown surfing on a 7-Up bottle, but in Spot Goes to Hollywood, I don't think you ever see any reference to 7-Up whatsoever. As with a lot of retro games, the story and gameplay are both pretty simple. You play as the character called Spot, sometimes known as Cool Spot, who gets trapped in one of those old movie projectors and progresses through different classic film genres while trying to save his friends. These different genres make up the game's levels, and they range from things like pirates to horror themes and to adventure movies and more besides. Like many platformers of the time, there's a few things to collect along the way, including small treasure items and red dots. The items you collect affect the score at the end of the level, whereas the red dots give you progress towards passing the level. Each level has a pass percentage, so it may say you need, let's say, 40% of the red dots to exit the level and complete it, and each one you collect gives you progress towards that. In the PS1 and Saturn version of the game, the red dots are essentially the standard collectible item, and collecting 100 of them will grant you an extra life instead. As Spot, the only thing you can really do is jump and attack with a ranged bubble ability. Some enemies can be beaten in one go, where others may require multiple hits to bring down. A lot of the time it can actually be a better option to simply ignore some enemies, as high scores and points aren't really a factor in your success. There are of course some boss fights which require you to dodge the various attacks in order to beat them. I don't think they have a set pattern of attacks or anything like that, but once you know what they're capable of, you should be able to tell what attack is coming and just play accordingly. There's also a couple of levels in the game that stray away from the normal gameplay pattern and change up the gameplay with you having to swim underwater, for example. And really, as I said, there isn't much more to say about the game. They are pretty simple, they're old games, it's just kind of how it is. But what do I think about it? What's my opinions on it? Well, this one is somewhat special to me. When I was younger, I actually owned this on the Sega Saturn, but before that, I remember renting it a lot on the Sega Mega Drive from Blockbuster Video. And seriously, it's crazy to me that I'm at that point in life where some of you who watch this video may not have even been born when I was renting this stuff from Blockbuster. It's kind of nuts, but I think it was the little things for me that stuck in my head. The way Spot looks, for example, the sounds that he makes and the sound effects that play when you collect the red dots, those kind of things really stick with me, and it's cool to hear them again through, modern hardware. In regards to the theme and the gameplay, you have to remember that we all looked at these graphics in the early to mid 90s and thought, wow, that looks really good, And personally, I still think that the pixel art in this game and the visual presentation holds up. I honestly think it holds up pretty well even today. I mean, does it look like Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart on the PS5? God no, of course it doesn't, it's not even close, but the game is literally over 25 years old at this point, and things were quite limited back then. I've known people in the past who have said things like the pixel graphics look bad because they're just old, they remind them of old games. Now, of course, you know me, if that's how they feel, then sure, no problem, that's their opinion and that's fine. For me though, pixel art doesn't always represent old games, it just represents a different art style in the same way that the realistic graphics of, let's say, The Division and the cel-shaded graphics that Borderlands have are quite different. I don't think one's inherently better than the other, they're just, as I said, different. And honestly, I'm quite a fan of pixel graphics, and I think the ones in this game hold up pretty well, and I find them to be quite charming. I do think the PS1 and the Saturn versions look and play better, there's just a little bit more to them overall, but this is still fun if you can get hold of it. I think the choice to make the game isometric can screw with the controls and your ability to judge distances sometimes, but overall, I think it looks great. Do keep in mind that I'm playing this on the Mega SG console at 1080p 60fps with a QLED 4K TV, so that may have something to do with how good it looks to me personally. You're seeing just the raw recording here, but to me it's all very bright and vibrant on my TV and it really does look great. However, in terms of how it plays in 2021, I think after you get used to the isometric view, it's a very playable platformer, definitely. It's probably not going to be up there with the likes of Super Mario games or Sonic the Hedgehog, but it's got enough going for it that I think you could have a good time with it if you were to give it a chance. And of course, I'm talking to people that already like retro games or already collect them or whatever the case may be, because even though it would be cool to get some younger fans into these kind of games at this point in time, I think a lot of people just won't have the attention for something like this. I just don't think it's out there. This is a very niche thing. So when I'm saying something like, I think you should give it a chance or you should add it to your collection or something like that, again, I'm really talking to the people that are already interested in this stuff, but if some younger people got into it as well, then so be it. That'd be a really cool thing as well. And I mean, look, nostalgia is a hell of a thing, and I do find it kind of odd that some people use it as a bit of a dirty word. Perhaps it depends on how sentimental you are as a person, I don't really know, but either way, I played the hell out of this game when I was a kid, and even though I was never good enough to finish it, it didn't matter. I just found it fun, and even though I couldn't beat it as a kid, I still enjoyed it. In fact, I'm actually going to try and finish a lot of the retro stuff I play for this channel, so maybe after 25 years, I can finally beat this game. And there you go, that was my quick look at Spot Goes to Hollywood for the Sega Mega Drive or Sega Genesis. These videos are a bit of a passion project for me, and I know they have a limited reach, but these games mean a lot to me and they help me remember a simpler time in my life. And please, if any of you out there have any experience with this game or any other retro games you'd like to talk about, please go ahead and leave them in the comments section. I would genuinely enjoy reading them. And of course, if you enjoyed the video or found it useful, I hope today will be the day that I earn your subscription. And if you want to support the channel even further, all the important links are in the video description down below. But with all that said, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.